Put the clapper in front of your face. When you hit it, you're on the air.
Okay. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being produced here at the Think Twice Radio at the home of the future. So thanks, Richard Wicca, our producer. And there he is. Actually, you can see him right there on the screen, I think. So, Richard, thanks. And I'm your host, or possibly co-host, if our fearless leader, Deidra EmEl, joins us. She may be able to get on the call. Our new executive director at the Western New York Peace Center is Deidra EmEl. I am the former executive director, and we have another one too. So I'm Vicki Ross. I'm actually still doing some work for the Peace Center, and very happy to be here. And especially, I'll go around, since I just said that, Charley Bowman is actually also an executive director at the Western New York Peace Center, and he is the Environmental Justice Task Force chair. So welcome, Charley.
Oh, hi. Thank you for inviting me, Vicki.
Oh, we're very glad to have. Well, you've had your own radio show too, I know. So it's no stranger to you being on the radio.
Yeah, that was started on WBNY 10 or 12 years ago.
Right.
And Jack Kanak was a huge driving force behind that.
And we still have it.
And we still have it, but it's in hiatus now. It's COVID has taken its toll, and among college radio stations. And I was in Albany here a couple days ago, and WRPI is just gearing up again after being off the radio, off the air for a year. So it's a common thing to have college radio stations off the air or in playing music 24/7, whatever. So anyway,
however,
the talk radio is getting back in again. So it's great that people like this program, for example, has been able to fill a void over the past years the void left by college radio. So.
Well, thank you. And I just want to remind you, Charley, that this also is aired on WBNY. So
that's great.
Yes, I think. Well, it's been in our reports for quite a bit.
Why aren't we in the studio?
And in my email to you and everything. Well, I am in the Think Twice Radio studio, and we have pre-taped it here at Think Twice Radio so that we can broadcast it on Monday on WBNY in our regular time slot. And that's what we've been doing. And we are one of the only shows that has managed to do this while the studio on campus has been closed.
Yeah,
so,
well, that's great that you guys have found a way around this COVID
exactly.
thing.
Yes, we did. So that, and then I want to say, then it is also a Facebook live stream, which is going on right now, and we may have some people watching from there. But anyway, I don't want to waste any more time before our other very wonderful guest, Kelly Camacho, who is the climate organizer for Push Buffalo. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Vicki. Thank you for having me. I feel like it's been a while since we got to spend some time together. But also, everybody else is the executive director or
you're
at Western New York Peace Center. Build up my resume.
You'll build up your resume, and then when Deidra's ready to step aside, you'll be right there. Ta-da! There you go. Plus, I'm being a task force chair now. I am actually newly a task force chair. I'm the Human Rights and Peace Education Task Force chair. So, or just chair. Thank you. So they wanted to give me something. But anyway, to make sure that I can, I wasn't going to walk away. Anyway. But anyway, I'm very thrilled that Deidra is taking the helm, and she is just the right person to do it. But in the meanwhile, one of the strengths of the Peace Center is that we have so much going on, and the task forces are part of what enables us to do that. And I want to say that the Environmental Justice Task Force is critical because we knew that the environment, and especially Charley is a scientist, or you know, so the environment is so so crucial, and it's such a crucial point right now that I'm very excited to give it as much attention as we can. And right now, we're here to talk about the climate and especially about the CCIA. So I want to say our resident expert on the CCIA, Kelly. So why don't you just sort of help us plunge in? Now I do know it's the Climate and Community Investment Act, right?
Yes. I totally understand the use of the acronym. Honestly, I still botch the acronym sometimes. It's just a lot of pressure with all the letters. But yes, the CCIA, the Climate and Community Investment Act, it's the sister bill, the CLCPA, or the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which we passed in 2019, that sets legally binding emission standards for New York State. So we had to create the CCIA in order to be able to earmark funding specifically for the CLCPA. So until we can really pass the CCIA, I don't think it's plausible that we're going to really make the goals that we set in the CLCPA, because we have to have the money component in order to do it.
Right.
So what we
Go ahead.
So what we did was we designed this bill to specifically take money from polluters, so the massive polluters, like the big ones, like National Fuel and National Grid, these massive polluters in New York State. We just want to charge them $55 per ton. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but that's something that adds up very quickly, because right now they're getting to do it for free. They get to pollute our neighborhoods for free. And so we're the ones who have to bear that cost, whether it's through medical bills or through things that just keep our neighborhoods hygienic and a little bit safer. And so we're wasting our money. So we want the source to have to pay for these things. So what we did was we put the $55 per ton tax on these polluters. So what they're going to have to do is give us that money that's going to create about $15 billion just in the first year alone. And then after that, year over year, we're going to increase it a little bit. So they have to keep giving a little more, no matter how much they keep polluting. So we set it up to really be something that's going to discourage pollution in our communities. So right now, we have it planned out that it would be broken up into essentially 3 different areas. So we want our offshore solar, we want offshore wind, and then we want our solar. We want these grid efficiency for all of New York State, things that are going to help the whole state out. But then we also want to break it down to our local nonprofits. So we want school efficiency, we want home efficiency. These are things that every single one of our communities needs, but we're going to do it by funding the nonprofits that are targeting these solutions. So a lot of the programs that organizations like PUSH have, we just want to continue that funding for those spaces. Right. Then the remaining 30% is going to go to our our lower earning 60% of New Yorkers. So this can go by transport vouchers, credits. Basically, we just want to make sure that no matter what happens with utilities, if utilities decide to raise costs or not, we want that bottom 60% to be at the same place they were or better once the CCIA is passed. And so it's a lot of money, and we just want to make sure that it's going back to the community. This is where it needs to go. We need this money, and if we don't get it, these problems are just going to perpetuate and continue to get worse as the climate crisis does.
Well, one of the things that, back to one of the strengths of the Western New York Peace Center is that we're always talking about how things, unite the struggles and how everything is related. And, of course, everything is related. And so it's really, we started off actually talking a little bit before the show about economic justice and about how, all the billionaires are not paying taxes, right? So all these big profitable companies who are making a mess of our environment are not cleaning it up. It gets left to us, the taxpayer, to fund it through the Department of Environmental Protection or the Environmental Protection Agency, I guess it would be, right? Is that who it would be, Charley? Or does it depend on what kind of mess, and who gets called first?
Well, I mean, New York State, in order to assess the tax, the $55 per metric ton CO2 equivalent, corporations will have to report what they're burning, and to federal authorities, and they do. They collect, the EPA collects CO2 information and fuel information from the larger power producers in New York State and all 50 states. For example, the larger power plants report that. But there are many smaller power plants who don't take part in that reporting scheme. And also, sadly, the Bitcoin mining operation, which is consuming enormous amounts of energy on the shores of Seneca Lake, for the sole purpose of mining Bitcoins. They're burning, they're throwing more CO2 equivalents into the atmosphere than it was while it was a coal plant. And that's not being reported. That CO2 is not being reported, and it's not being recorded by New York State. And that has to change. And that they have to pay that tax too. So can anyways,
you explain
I don't know how the mechanics of how it's going to be, but somehow that money has to be collected and distributed to disadvantaged communities that've been on the on the receiving end of all the pollution,
right?
Oil and air pollution and all the dumps and so forth. I mean, it's really sad what's going on in New York State and also around the country.
So, Charley, can you explain, and we'll get back with the CCIA, and I want to also see how it fits together with that. So there's plenty more, but we still have plenty more time. So I know you were just there with the Bitcoin, a protest about the Bitcoin.
Right.
But I want to say, I think I am not alone in not really understanding. I don't really understand it. So if you can explain a little more about Bitcoin, and then secondly, what are all these serious energy ramifications? And water ramifications.
Well, I mean, to get back to Kelly's thing, my mind's going again. What was the acronym?
The CCIA. It's the
CCIA.
Climate and Community Investment.
Corporate polluters pay. We anytime anybody uses any energy, will have to pay.
Right.
Which I estimated that if I burn a gallon of gasoline in my wife's car, that should cost me an extra 50 cents at the gas pump. And we heat our home with fossil fuels with methane. I'd love to get into geothermal, but we haven't done that yet. We're going to have to pay, $20 per ton extra too. I mean, $55 per ton. I haven't worked out the figures yet. But anyways, I mean, we all have to pay, and corporate polluters have to report the figures, and New York State has to be brave enough to collect that information, and they're not doing that now. I mean, they're not. I mean, they every 5 years, NYSERDA puts out a CO2 estimate of New York State. They're 1 year in arrears on that report. The last one was 2015, I believe. Maybe Kelly can correct me. And they just write a letter to corporations around asking, how much fuel did you burn? So they're not collecting the information. They're not, in a way that I'd consider being accurate. Doing spot checks, reading meters, that kind of thing has to be done. And there's nothing in the plans that will do that, as far as I know. So we need accurate information on CO2, and New York State is not collecting that. And that's the basis of any tax, any carbon tax, which we definitely need. We need to distribute that money in an equitable manner to all the economic justice communities and schools, and we need to tighten up the buildings. I was driving down Walden Avenue several years ago, and in the wintertime, and there was a 30-foot icicle hanging off the rafters of one house on Walden Avenue. I mean, in the middle of December. I mean, it's. That shows that house was leaky as a sieve. Right.
But because I'm getting more questions, not less questions, as we go on. So the first thing I want to understand is and I think we'll put this back to you, Kelly. So for CCIA, is that just for the largest polluters, or is it for anybody who's using fuel, or how is all of that working? Is it just for the very largest, or for all of the consumers, or what?
I believe it's just specifically corporate polluters. I'm going to have to look into just the ins and outs of that for you, but we can find that out.
Okay, so that's something interesting to find out. But I also agree, and it may be that everybody pays in according to their usage, and then the 60% are getting something back, and then the others, the corporations and the people who are the wealthier 40% or something don't get anything back. Maybe that's the way. So we'll find out, and we'll get you let us know, and we'll let people know. So that was one of my questions. But getting back to the Bitcoin thing, which I didn't get any more. I just let me start off with, it's an alternative currency, so it's not a U.S. currency, and it's not. Now, I think it's not one of the currencies that is already being. It wasn't traded on, it wasn't, the International Monetary Fund may not have had anything to do with it, may still not have anything to do with it, I don't know. So that is part of the question. But the bigger question to me is, when people talk about mining Bitcoin, what does that mean? And how does it use a lot of energy? And then how is that heating up the water that gets put into the lake and then driving up the temperature in the lake and polluting and killing things in the lake? That's what I want to understand.
Well, Bitcoin came around about 10 or 12 years ago.
Right.
And it's been gradually increased, gradually accepted as a alternative currency. And it's traded on the stock market. There's many flavors of Bitcoins. And the most famous one is called Bitcoins. And what they do is the computers of the world who buy into this Bitcoin, they're all connected 24/7, 365, and they all agree on if you what you do is solve this complex mathematical puzzle, and if you solve the puzzle and throw out an answer, and all the other computers agree that you have an answer, you're awarded a Bitcoin, and each Bitcoin is now worth $35,000. It was $55,000 a month ago or so, and so you keep on mining, and the problem is that the mathematical.
So mining is calculating, is it?
Mining is calculating.
Okay.
And the problem for each new Bitcoin discovered, and there's a finite number of Bitcoins that are possible, but each new Bitcoin, the puzzle gets more complex. And so what they do is throw another computer at it. And so, as the complexity increases, the number of computers you need to be first at the finish line in mining Bitcoins, you need more computers. And so the operation on Seneca Lake will have, I forget what it is, thousands of computers. I forget what the number is now, but maybe over 1,000 computers. They're all consuming energy, and the thing about and energy is expensive. They're burning frack gas. It's expensive. It comes from Pennsylvania. It's polluting Pennsylvania every time you mine for frack gas, and you burn this and throw it up in the atmosphere, and you have to burn more of it to be first at the finish line, because you have to add more computers. And so all the world's computers that are involved in this effort have a huge driving force to increase the energy consumed for each new Bitcoin, and that throws an enormous amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. And estimates now are that New York State will not be able to meet the CLCPA requirements, 50 by 30, I believe, and 50% reduction from 1990 levels CO2 by 2030. they're not going to be able to make that if as this Bitcoin mining explodes in New York State. And they're Bitcoin mining now in Buffalo in 2 locations, one in North Tonawanda and one in Buffalo someplace. And they're going to be burning frack gas at one of those sites, and 55 megawatt generator. And that's going to be running 24/7, almost 24/7. You have 90% capacity, just like the Seneca Lake facility. And they're going to be throwing more CO2 than they ever been from those facilities while they were supplying power to homes in the general area. So these power plants are going to be enormously polluted. And that's why we need to get this CCIA bill through, where polluters pay.
Right.
And so that will put a little bit of a brake on Bitcoin mining investment. And there's a separate bill in the legislature that the Senate passed to slow down this Bitcoin mining, and that's another avenue of approach to slow down this carbon footprint, because we need a environmental assessment on this method of generating CO2 and what the effect is will be on the CLCPA. I mean, we need to have that study done pronto, and we need to stop Bitcoin mining until that we have an answer on that, and we can take it from there at that point. So
you bring up, it's funny because I just brought up economic justice, and I want to say that especially because of the nature of this bill and just the nature of things, but that the environment and the money thing, keep the money issues and the resources, it's a resource issue, right? And it's so critical for our community. And when you think about, sort of whose resources get spent for what as part of it. But the other thing is, when we think about Bitcoin mining and all the energy that's being generated, and it's for a currency that is just an artificial thing. And so one of the things that I heard recently was that our real economy, where the goods and services that are produced and all of that, is 1/8 as big as the financial economy and all the other the derivatives and the junk bonds and the hedge funds and there's all this other stuff that's the big casino that is the stock market, and there's all that so-called wealth that is in some currency, right? But that is all this accounting and so-called money that's based on, well, of course, we're not tied to the gold standard anymore. So it's not backed up by a real thing. And it just keeps ballooning up, right? Including the Bitcoin. Now there's new currencies, and not just Bitcoin. There's other ones coming. And it's all artificial. It's not real. It's not an actual asset. It's not an actual, it's an asset. People loan you money on it, and it keeps multiplying itself, but it doesn't necessarily correspond. It's 8 times bigger than the table and the other actual things and the food and the other stuff that it's supporting. So I just think we should register that as a factor. And this is why I wish Laura was here. So Laura Seneca may come in during this conversation as well as Deidra, who were both invited and still may be able to pop in. But Laura and the indigenous people who were already oriented to the real physical world and the spiritual world, and who really have been left behind in terms of this economy, very much so, who have been impoverished in a way. I know Cornel West said that he thought he had seen poverty until he saw indigenous people, in this country. So they've opened, and one of their responses to all the things that are going on today is to get more serious about farming the land and everything like that. So it's just very much something to really think about. I mean, I know that when we've talked about people, the polluters needing to pay for their abominations is absolutely out of the, absolutely essential. When we think about West Valley and think how the taxpayers have been left with that whole disaster. When we think about all the big Superfund cleanups that were companies out there trying to make money in most cases, and then when they're done, when the mess is made, or when they don't know they can't deal with it anymore, they don't want to deal with it anymore, then there's a bankruptcy and the taxpayer is left, and the rest of the world is left holding the bill and the problem. And some of those problems, like West Valley, for example, is a problem that really at this point defies solution. Just very, very much needing to have the resources to do an absolutely thorough cleanup. So what do you think about that, Kelly? First of all, the thing about the economics, what I was saying, doesn't that blow your mind? 8 times bigger?
Yeah, I'm also still, I really didn't know very much about Bitcoin.
That's
so I think
a whole nother thing.
And I don't even think I ever considered it too, because I was like, yeah, how can like a digital currency be bad for the environment? And like that's a really interesting point, Charley.
Yeah, they're burning the frack gas to mine Bitcoins, and they're going to be doing that in Buffalo and North Tonawanda at the First Star power plant, a 55 megawatt power plant. I think we should maybe plan some rallies there in front of that plant to inform the local neighborhood that of the upcoming methane burning.
So where in Tonawanda, you said?
Yeah, it's in North Tonawanda. So,
sure, that's not far.
And so maybe sometime. And we need, like they have demonstrations in front of the power plant in Torrey, New York, on the shores of Seneca Lake. A monstrosity, a huge monstrosity, was a former coal plant, which they transitioned into a methane plant. And they were able to convince New York State to say, okay, you can have the same air permits. You don't have to file any more permit work. We'll just let you go ahead and do whatever you want. And and what New York State understands, and they're allowing it, is that they'll be burning a lot more, throwing a lot more CO2 carbon into the atmosphere than they ever did while they were a coal plant. And they were just saying, okay, here's your air permit. No, we'll just extend it. So, and they're heating up the water, as Vicki said, to 105 degrees. And trout don't like that. And it's a major trout stream there. So, anyways, they're what the company has responded to that, saying we'll buy some credits. We'll buy some carbon credits from maybe from a big solar farm somewhere.
Well, so Charley, you're frozen. So I don't know if you.
And then we'll offset our.
Oh. Anyway, he'll come back in a minute, I'm sure.
So.
Right. Well, I think, one thing I'm reminded that actually we did this last talking piece and we didn't do it. I had planned to do it when we first started and I forgot, was, so I think now is as good a time as any to just sort of think, in these difficult problems that we're talking about, what are the values that we want to hold up that give us the solutions to these problems? I mean, what are the principles or the values that really answer what we need to do with these problems? And maybe, Kelly, what do you think of as the values that you want to hold up in getting solutions to these problems?
Yeah, I think the HIMES principles are great, and just transition framework's really great. Like, we have to move our economy to get a just transition, like we have to be more equitable. For me personally, I like to carry just that, like, this movement is intersectional, and we can't have climate justice without racial justice, without gender justice, without all of these things, because like you said, everything is so interconnected. And like environmental pollution is directly connected to racial groups and their neighborhoods. That's why our indigenous neighborhoods are our most polluted ones, because the United States can put pollutants there without any repercussions, because indigenous people are not viewed as like part of the United States. So it's just a dumping ground for whatever, or they mine things there and let the runoff go right into drinking water. And honestly, it's really sad to still see. And now with Line 3, it's just another glaring example of how we're still doing this.
Right.
And I think it's incredibly just awful that in New York State, it is illegal to frack, but we still use frack gas as if it somehow doesn't get it from somewhere else.
Right. And not only that, we still have the ugly rearing its head, the NAPL, Northern Access Pipeline, which would be putting piping fracked gas through us, anyway, and leaking it into the floor and everything, into the ground. So, Charley, what about you? What are the values that you think of when you think about these issues and our solutions?
Well, I mean, we have to have economic equity in this country. We've siphoned off so much income from middle class, lower middle class. We've taken health care away from poor people, and we told them to go to the emergency room when you have a problem, and that's a sin. I mean, if I had to go to the emergency room every time I had a medical problem, I'd be dead now. So, fortunately, my wife and I can afford health care, unlike many people. So we need, to stop taking, we need to reverse that trend. And we need to tax the billionaires that they're under heavy pressure now. And thankfully, ProPublica will continue that publication effort. And they will. They said they would. And hopefully the New York Times will follow up and say, hey, isn't this, we should focus on this. They were asleep at the switch on this issue for many years.
Right.
And the other source of money, the big source of money that we need to focus on is the military spending. We need to have universal health care. Everybody in, nobody out. You can see any doctor you want, regardless of your income. And, this is, we need child care. We have mothers taking the bus and, putting their children in child care, and essentially their income is eaten up by the child care. And this is so wrong. And we have student debt, student debt problem. Biden is backing off on all his promises on this, and we have the Green Party in New York State being killed essentially by Governor Cuomo in the legislature last year, as well as the Working Families Party. Two wonderful organizations that are leading the charge on climate change, and the Democrats have taken over some of the wording. The Green New Deal. You think that's a some people think that's a Democratic invention. The Green Party.
Well, anyway, while Charley is frozen, I think we want to keep... there you go. Oops. Hello, Charley. So those are all so important and different issues that are all, very connected.
We can do it. We can do a show on each one of them. So
right, and we do shows on a lot of them. I want to say, and one of the things is we're very aware, and actually that's part of how we were thinking about the shows, is that the legislature is going to finish up their session very shortly. I think is it really tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
can't believe
Tomorrow,
it's
probably at 3 a.m., Friday morning.
Yeah, so people, one of the things, I mean, there's a whole raft of things that really need to happen, and one of them is the CCIA. And so getting back to that and why we need it. So we've talked a lot about what it is and why we need it. I think we can do some more with that. But before we do, I really want to understand now. I know Crystal Peoples-Stokes has been a champion for it, yes? Or at least she came out, didn't she come out to Delaware Park?
Yes, she has signed on as a co-sponsor. As a
co-sponsor. So to me, that's a champion of it. And I say, God bless, Crystal Peoples-Stokes is the one of all of them that we can count on the most. That has been obvious for years. So meanwhile, anybody else signed on?
Yeah, so we've got some folks in the area. We've got John Rivera.
John Rivera, yes. John Rivera, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but for Western New York, we haven't had a ton of people signing on. We actually just went on Monday, some of the folks involved in the New York News Coalition went to Karen McMahon's office because she sits on environmental committees. She sits on women initiative committees. She sits on transportation committees, and she's yet to sponsor the CCIA. And,
yeah, she's my representative. So,
did you get to talk to her?
Not yet. I'll call her tomorrow.
I'm saying, Kelly, did you get to talk to her?
We didn't get to talk to her, but I think she became aware of our presence, and so we're hopefully she'll take some action. I just think it's really interesting that someone who wants to represent us on the fronts of being a woman, being involved in the transportation committee, can just turn a blind eye to something that would be so beneficial for both of those things.
Right.
So
right.
McMahon, anybody who is a constituent of McMahon should be calling her. So
yes.
Also, what about Sean Ryan?
Sean Ryan has yet to make any moves on the CCIA.
Right.
So yes.
So his office told me, "Oh yes, he's in favor. He's in favor." I'm like, that doesn't help us very much. Well, because one of the things we've seen there's not a lot of bold and brave action by our politicians in general. As a rule. So when people are going to really support something, they have to get right behind it and show people that they are right behind it. And so that's not a good enough answer. Oh, he's going to vote for it. I mean, we need the vote, yes, but we need the standing behind it. We need the co-sponsorship or making your intention explicit and public, right? So that's one of them. What about Tim Kennedy? No. So that is very disappointing for people who, I'm going to say, from my perspective, seem to be trying to look like they're very progressive, but then this is the ultimate in a really slam dunk legislation, and they're not there. Anybody else you want to mention that people should be calling that hasn't been supportive that we think there's...
We need to continue to press Tim Kennedy. He signed on to the CLCPA. He was a sponsor for it, so he needs to step up with that same energy for this sister bill. I believe his staffer, Adam, told us that he was too busy looking at other bills to do anything about the CCIA. And that seemed just like a do you want a cookie moment? Because I have to do my job to survive. You need to do your job because you said you were going to represent the people, and this is something we need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I have to ask, where did that, do you want a cookie? Was that Boris Johnson, or was that just the same tactic? Because he did actually come out when he was in trouble with, a bunch of reporters for something, and he came out in his shorts or something, I don't even know, with a cup of tea, to give him a cup of tea, and I bet he did have cookies, because he didn't want to talk about it, but he would give him a cup of tea, right out of his house, So anyway, so be calling Tim Kennedy, be calling Sean Ryan, people should be calling them, and Karen McMahon.
I'd honestly say if anybody even has said they were going to co-sponsor, to continue to call. There have been some folks trying to back out of sponsorship due to the business council putting out the information saying that we're going after trying to raise 55 cents per gallon on just gas for normal people. And that's not what we want. We don't want regular people having to front this cost. We want this coming out of the profit margins of these people who are making thousands of dollars per hour.
Right. So then so from what you're saying, it would be that what Charley was talking about is not the way it's written.
No, that's so. Yeah, it's correct. The 55 cents per gallon is a narrative that is trying to be put by by the Business Council. Mm-hmm. And that's not something we're trying to go after. We don't want normal people having to bear this cost because honestly, that's where everything comes from. Regular people have to already front so many costs.
Right.
And so we're trying to get that reinvestment back into our community. We don't want to see these companies taking it out on the consumer. Right.
Right. No, we can't do that. We can't have them doing that. So we've talked about some of the importance to the community. I want to talk about the lobbying and dark money of the corporate interests also. So that's another factor that we haven't talked about, although I think we know it's in there. Is as far as lobbyists, you mentioned the Better Business Bureau, or some of the corporate.
Yeah, it's the business. Hold on, let me look up their actual title. I want to make sure we get it right.
Right, we should get it right. Right. So anyway, while you're looking at that, or while you're checking, you can check in a little further down, but. One of the things that we have ever since Citizens United is that they say, oh, speech is money, and money can go anywhere. People can have the right to spend their money any kind of way, and it doesn't need to be explained and doesn't need to be revealed. So I want to say, hats off to Little Sis, who has done plenty of that. And as you're saying, it's like ProPublica or, Democracy Now!, these different, news agencies that are doing investigative reporting are doing a very critical job to really reveal, because it is the follow the money thing. And so these people, it suits their purpose to pay small fines and just avoid the issue and then leave it in the taxpayer's lap when it's no longer profitable and all the pollution has been done. We need to really, this is back to democracy is not a spectator sport, is that people need to be aware, they need to be educating themselves, and also getting active, calling our legislators, letting people know where we stand. I know we had a couple rallies over CCIA, numerous rallies over CCIA, besides all of the social media that's been behind it as well, and trips to Albany as well.
Yeah, and so speaking of Albany and following the money, so it is the Business Council of New York State. It is located in Albany. And brought up following the money. I thought that was so important because the chair of the Business Council is this woman named Donna, who is also the president of Natural Fuel Gas, who just...
Ooh, that is bad. Bad. Oh, I want to put that out on Twitter and let me retweet it for you. Right. Yes, that is so bad. Well, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is what we know is a lot. There's a lot of things that go on as PR that are just plain a bunch of, I would call it, it's not papal bull. It's just plain bull.
Vicki?
Yes. Yeah. What?
Oh, Charley.
Yeah, he froze again. Oops.
I have to leave in a few minutes. My wife and I. Is there anything else that you want me to discuss here?
Well, we will be on for another 10 minutes or something like that. This is so. If you can just hang on another couple minutes, or
I got to leave pretty soon. So.
Oh, I wish we knew that when we were arranging for this.
Yeah, I didn't know until about 45 minutes ago. So anyway.
Okay. Well, things do come up.
Okay.
No, that's certainly not too unusual. So anyway, I know we have a lot of work to do to get people really behind this. And I want to say, what I did want to mention when we were first introducing, I wanted to mention to you that the second trip that you missed out to Stop Line 3 was actually, we called it the Onondawaga Protectors Environmental Justice Expedition. In honor of the Environmental Justice Taskforce and the generous donation we got for staying at that same lovely place that we stayed last time, because there was no room at the camp. Again, both times.
Yeah. Thank
actually,
you. Yeah.
especially the last time.
Thank you. That's very nice. So.
Well, it was important, and it's so inspiring. And right now they're having a treaty rights rally, and they've had, I think they've had quite a few people arrested. I know Tanya Abid went and she stayed in the wigwam and refused to leave, and they had all kinds of people out, out and about for, they had thousands of people out. And especially because they have a number of different sites, because of course they have like 66 places that they're going to, that they need to cross the water, the Mississippi and tributaries, and they have 22 places where they plan to go under the riverbed to set this up. So she was very courageous. She took all her stuff. She went to a wigwam that she and Winona LaDuke had created on their land before any of the Line 3 things were going on. And then she refused to leave because of the 1855 treaty. She was showing them her rights, and that the rights to the land are there. So it's important. It's important. So anyway, I can see that Charley is...
Across any more of those trips, let me know, Vicki, because I'm this close to just packing up a car and heading back out there.
Well, I think
they need your presence now, Kelly. There's hundreds of people out there now, and if anybody can go out there, they need to get out there. And
right.
I think we can find some funding to help people get out there. So.
Well, I don't. You don't have to say that to me twice, because I'm the free bird now. Although we do have Camp Peace Prince coming up, but that's not till July. So
yeah, why don't you bring all the kids out there?
Oh well, there you go. It's a field trip.
To Minnesota at the end of the month.
Yes, it's our field trip. Yeah, 2-week camp, 2-week away camp. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it sounds like a plan. I'm going to blame it on you, Charley, too. When
thanks.
The parents ask us, we'll just have them. We'll have them come ahead and go at. I'm just surprised at all the possibilities, and I'm gonna blame them all on you, Charley. We'll send them to you. Send the parents to you, and let them know.
I'm leaving the country.
This is why This is why we're bringing your children to Minnesota here. It's Charley's good idea. Yeah.
A wonderful educational experience.
It will be. It will be. I can hardly wait. We're having some questions about where the camp is going to be, and I'll tell them tomorrow. We've solved it. And just move them to Minnesota.
Anyway.
We'll take the camp to Minnesota.
Okay, Kelly,
Sounds
Vicki,
like a plan.
I have to go.
Okay. Thank you, Charley.
Thanks
a jillion. We'll have another expedition in your honor.
Okay.
It's coming right up.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. We'll see you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
So we do have a bit more time, and I want to say there are so many things to talk about still. And I do wonder how much the CCIA can help with one of the things that we've talked about, which is the way that local people and the mismatch between local people and big projects at times. So I know we've come up with a few things like the stamp plant, do you know about that? You know about that. We've talked about it. They want to do green hydrogen, and it's going to take massive amounts of water, and they're planning it for this place that is pretty unspoiled, that just has, it's an office park, but it's very superficial, any development that has been had. So most of it is very wild or something like that. So that's a problem. Then there's a solar farm that they wanted to do that's right near Onondawaga, that is around all the a very ancient site for the Seneca and for indigenous people, and is just a very bad place to put a big solar array, when there are other places that are either brownfields or the Niagara Falls Air Base, which Charley Bowman actually put together a whole plan of how to turn that into a solar array. But is there anything in that? So, and there's burial grounds there, so it's just the wrong spot for it. So is there anything in the CCIA that's about that local control, or how to sort of get at the mismatch at times, or work on those issues? Is there anything about that, or not really?
The money for the CCIA is supposed to specifically go first and foremost to our frontline communities. So these are our brown communities that are being impacted by pollutants. So I think it just depends on what relationships we're talking about specifically. So we can dig a little bit deeper off air onto some of those things and try and figure out what that would look like for specific situations.
Because I've seen that as something that is a big thing. And so we don't want to NIMBY, if it's always not in my backyard, or I don't like the way that it looks, or, and yet, not to give zero credence to that, but also, there's a certain amount of, we have an urgent situation and we need to do, big and important and, make a dent, we have to have big projects. I think small projects are partial solution, but even then, it's that where time is so important in all this too. So anyway, there's a lot of different elements, and I am wondering how much that could help us with that. But the biggest thing is, I think a part of it is just the slam dunk of, we know the main thing is about getting polluters to pay the cost of pollution, and that can be used to increase the equity in a just transition, and to help pay the cleanup costs for that matter.
And I think it just goes to show how scared the Business Council is of legislation like that they have to specifically spread disinformation to folks in order to try and combat the CCIA, because it's something that's going to be so amazing for our communities. When we're able to pull our communities out of pollution, when we're able to take on some of the burden of poverty from our communities are going to flourish. And rich people don't want that. Rich people don't want distribution of wealth.
Right. Well, we've got to have it, and we've got to have a more just world. We need, I always say this with the kids, that the real victory, everybody wins. And so rich people, you can't eat money. So that's, the riches are not going to help us. So the fairness, the healthy, beloved community of people who care about each other and help each other, that's what's going to help us. That's what's going to get us through. And that's why we need these changes. We need this legislation. We certainly need the CCIA. So we'll do everything we can to get people to support it. And, so what would you like to see people do?
I'd say call as many legislators as you can, specifically the ones that are representing you. Give a reminder to the people who have co-sponsored that this is something we need. We don't want to see more people backing out of CCIA sponsorship because of misinformation. That's not something that we want to see. And we just have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep navigating this, and whatever other misinformation that's going to come up as a result of how strong this bill is, we're really just going to have to keep dispelling that information. So if anybody sees that 55-cent tax increase on gas, you let me know, and I will personally tell them they are wrong.
Okay, we'll correct it. We'll correct it immediately so people can do things on social media, actually call their offices. And what about Carl Heasty and Andrea Stewart Cousins? Should we be calling them?
Yes.
Okay, so include them. Yep. Well, we'll do that. And thank Crystal. Thank our shero, Crystal Peoples-Stokes, because she really does come through when nobody else has come through. And John Rivera. Thank John Rivera, too.
Definitely give them some love. Send them an email. Thank them for their sponsorship. Let them know that they're doing the right thing.
I'll definitely do that. Well, so we're planning a trip, huh? Okay.
I'm down, Vicki. Like I told you since I didn't get to go on that second one, if you guys get out there another time, I'll be there. I'll make it happen.
Okay, I'll be talking with people. We'll be figuring it out. It sounds great. Anyway, so any other final thoughts or anything you want to share as we start to finish off? Anytime. Let me see if there's anything we were supposed to talk about that we didn't. I think we covered pretty much everything. Oh, I'll just we did mention West Valley and, that we need the cleaning up there. We did mention that we have to be so vigilant about the NAPL, the Northern Access Pipeline that is looming its head. And so and especially the reason that we're in such a beautiful spot, but we're in such a critical spot because of the 40% of the world's fresh water supply is right there next to us.
Yep.
Oh wait, I'm just having a brain freeze. Is it 20% or is it 40%? Ooh, I used to know. I do know. See, this is why I'm stepping aside. I can't remember. But I can tell you it is a critically large amount. It is a minimum of 20%. I think it is 20%. I think it's 20% of the world's freshwater supply. Right here, in our whole connected thing that's getting nuclear waste in it. It's getting Bitcoin hot stuff. No, that's the Finger Lakes, but it's all connected just like we're all connected. So
it's 20% of our fresh water.
It is 20. I told you. That's what I thought. As soon as I said 40, I thought, no. But 20%. But 20%, even that 20% is astounding. Mm-hmm. So we have so much to do. Meanwhile, you can find Charley on the outside the Peace Bridge every Friday doing a vigil about stop liquid nuclear waste coming off the Peace Bridge. So there's plenty of issues. You can find some of them on the Western New York Peace Center, and lots of them with Push and Push Green as well. I appreciate you so much, Kelly. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So I want to say this is Talking Peace, and we have been talking peace in truth and love. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Really appreciate you.
Definitely burnt out in the middle of this week.
Oh, well, it's been a busy week. I mean, there's no question. I'm sorry I didn't come out when I don't think it made a difference one more person did it. But I felt bad that I didn't join you out there for McMahon.
Oh, yeah. No worries. I think it went really well. There will be more opportunities to organize.
There's no shortage of opportunities. Oh, help. Anyway, well, big hugs and love to you. We'll be planning. We'll be talking. I'll talk to Laura and Sis and them. We'll be doing it. Okay.
All right. Bye, Vicki.
Bye for now. Thanks a jillion. So, there's somebody came in. I can't. Have you turned off the Facebook yet? Wonderful. So here. So, what is going? I don't understand what's going on. Bev and Joan, did Tom tell you to surprise me or something? This is the radio show. Hi. Hello. Hello? Joan and Bev, could you come on camera or turn on your... Hi.
Hi.
Hi. You know, Joan, who gave you this Zoom link?
Bev.
Yeah, Bev. How you know, we're doing, this is the radio show. Was this to watch it or something?
Well, we could just listen.
Well, I'm just saying, I didn't know you're going to be on, and we didn't say you're going to be on, and I did. Yeah, I don't.
Can we just block us?